Hey, Miss Marion here. We're going to go ahead and talk about triangle sum theorems and then also define triangles. So we're going to be going through a lot of different things today. So make sure that you get your note pages. You should have 2 of them. And then also get something to write with. So the I can statements for today is that we can find the missing angle of a triangle if I know the 2 other angles of a triangle. And I understand that all 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. And then we're going to be able to classify a triangle by their angles and sides. So that's our goal for today. This is what we're working on. So there's a lot of information going on right now, okay? So as I said before, you should have 2 papers for today. One is classifying triangles. Notes, that's this one. And then the other one is triangle sum theorem. It actually says triangle sum theorem on it. You should have 2 papers for today. If not, make sure you get the 2 papers. All right, the first one we're going to start with is the triangle sum theorem. We're going to be talking about triangles, right? And you should have actually watched the video that's on campus about the triangle sum theorem and what it actually means. And if you actually watched it, it actually showed there were 3 different triangles, and they took the angles of all 3 of those angles, they put them together, and so all 3, so it's the 3 interior. How about I spell that so you can see it a little better. Let's erase that. So the inside angles, so the interior angles, sum or add, okay, that's what the sum, to 180 degrees. So a lot of times you'll actually see it this way, where here is the measurement of angle A plus a measurement angle B plus a measurement angle C. All of those add to 180 degrees. All right, so here we have example number 1, example number 2. We have, this is a triangle, right? We have 37 degrees, we have 63 degrees, and this is the measurement of angle U. That's what it actually means. So measurement of angle U, that is what we're looking for. And so what I like to do is, I know all of it adds to 180 degrees. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract off the 37 and subtract off the 63. So grab your calculator. Yes, you'll need one today. And we're going to do 180 minus 37 minus 63. And then we're going to have 80 left over. So the measurement of angle U is 80 degrees. Same thing with example number 2. So we have 46 degrees. We know that this makes a right. So whenever we have the box there, it makes it a right angle, or 90 degrees. So this one's 90. So again, I'm going to say 180 minus 90 minus 46. So 180 minus 90 minus 46. And that is going to equal 44. So then the measurement of angle B is 44 degrees. All right, I want you to go ahead and try example 3 and 4. So go ahead and pause, figure out what those angles are, and then come back to me. All right, so example number 3, we're going to look at it. So I'm going to have 180 minus 36 minus 51. So we have 180 minus 36 minus 51. That is going to be 93. So Q should be 93 degrees. And then let's look at example number 4. So we have 180 minus 118 minus 33. So 180 minus 113 minus 33. Oops, sorry. 180, 118, 33. That's going to be 29 degrees. And we can actually check these. So we can actually go back into, and we can actually check with them. We can say, okay, in my calculator, let's do example number 3. I can go 180, sorry, we're going to check it. So we're going to say, is 36 plus 51 plus 93, does that equal 180? Yeah. And we can actually check it with example number 4. We're going to have 29 plus 33 plus 118. Yep, that also equals 180. So these are the correct angles that we're looking for the interior angles of the triangles for example number 3 and 4. All right, at the bottom of your page, we have a lot of different angle definitions, and we want to make sure we understand these because we're going to be using them a little bit later in understanding what they are. Acute angles. What is acute angles? What does that actually mean? Acute angles is an angle less than 90 degrees. So they're smaller. They're small angles. A right angle is an angle equal to 90 degrees. Exactly 90. An obtuse angle is an angle greater than 90 degrees. And if we really want to be particular on the obtuse, it's greater than 90, but it's also less than 180, because a straight angle is an angle equal to 180 degrees. So these are all different kind of types of angles, and we're going to be using that a little bit later today. Complementary angles are two angles that add to 90 degrees. Supplementary are two angles that add to 180 degrees. Congruent, we talked about, is the same measurement. And then the last one is actually really new, and we're going to be talking about this actually tomorrow. But vertical angles, they are across from each other and congruent, or they have the same measure. And we're going to be we'll talk about vertical angles a little bit later. So make sure you have all of these definitions on your page because you're going to be actually be using those. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to be classifying triangles. You should have a worksheet that looks like this. This is the front side, and we're actually going to be kind of working through this to be able to go ahead and classify triangles, but we have to do some definitions. So again, make sure you have your pencil and your worksheet with you. So notice again how we are going to fill in this top part first. So the one that kind of looks like this, the top part, we're going to go ahead and fill it in, but you have to turn it on its side. It just makes it a little bit easier. And so what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to do some definitions. This is a way of actually classifying a triangle by its side. See how it has these little tick marks all the way around? This shows that the sides of this triangle are all congruent. And the definition of that, or the label of that, is what is considered equilateral. So equilateral. Okay, so what it means is equal. So equa is equal and lateral is sides. So all three sides, I'm going to spell that out. Of the triangle are congruent. Remember, congruent is to have the same measure. So all three sides have the same measure. The way that they indicate that is with these little tick marks. Next one, notice how our next triangle, we have only two tick marks. So that means we have two sides that are congruent. So isosceles, I-S-O-S-C-E-L-E-S, isosceles. Then we have two sides of the triangle are congruent. And then the last one, notice how this triangle here, it doesn't have any of the tick marks on it. there's no tick marks, that means none of the sides are congruent. So this is what is considered scalene. And no sides are congruent, or no sides are the same. All right, so this is a way of actually labeling the sides. So either equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. And now we're going to go ahead and go to the bottom part of this page. So we're going to go down here is what we're going to be looking at. And this is a way of actually looking at labeling the angles of it. So up here was the sides, we just barely did that. And now here we're going to be looking at the angles of a triangle, but we're going to be filling in this part. So here's it a little bit bigger. And so we're going to be looking at this. We want to go ahead and we want to label it. We're going to label this first one. If we look at all these angles up here, all these angles, they are really, really small. And remember that the definition of small as far as angles is acute. So ACU, let's make it so we can see a little bit better. Acute. And that where all angles of the triangle are acute angles. Or they are smaller than 90 degrees. Next, we're going to go ahead and look at this one here. See how this one has an obtuse or bigger than 90-degree angle. So this is what is considered an obtuse triangle. So an obtuse triangle is where one angle of the triangle is obtuse or bigger than 90 degrees. And then if we look at the last one down here, see how we have that little box that says makes it a right. So this is what is considered a right triangle. And this is where one angle of the triangle is right. Okay, so this page actually helps us to go ahead and figure out, kind of like label the triangles, and we're going to pick one from the sides, one from the angles, and last name is always triangle. So before we go ahead and label triangles, we're going to go ahead and go on the back side of this page. And what we want to do is we want to look at it, and we want to be able to go ahead and see if we can form the different triangles. So this is an obtuse isosceles. What would that look like? Obtuse equilateral. What would that look like? Obtuse scalene. What would that look like? Obtuse isosceles. So acute isosceles, acute equilateral, acute scalene. And then here is a right isosceles, a right equilateral, and a right scalene. Now, I want you to go ahead and try these, see if you can draw those. There will be two of them that they are impossible. Only two that you're not going to be able to go ahead and do. So I want you to kind of pause right now, see if you can actually draw these and see what they look like, and then come back to me. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to try these. So the first one, again, is considered an obtuse isosceles. So an obtuse isosceles is obtuse is bigger than 90 degrees. Isosceles has two sides that are congruent. So an obtuse isosceles, so kind of looks like this. And I'm going to kind of mark them with a tick mark. The two sides are congruent, but I have an obtuse triangle in there. Obtuse equilateral. Obtuse equilateral is not, you cannot make that. It doesn't work. And then obtuse scalene. So we have it where we have an obtuse angle, but then the sides are not congruent. All right, let's look at the next one. So we have an acute isosceles. Acute isosceles is where all the angles are small, but then the two sides are congruent. This is, you can go ahead and make this one. Next one is acute equilateral. Equilateral triangles are always going to have all of the angles are actually acute, and then all the sides are the same. And then next we have an acute scalene. This is where the angles are small, but the sides are different. Next, if we look at the bottom part, we have a right isosceles. So a right triangle, and then the sides are the same, and then remember that little square mark makes it 90. Next, we're going to try to do a right equilateral triangle. So a right equilateral triangle does not exist. So this one we cannot do at all. So that's our second one. And then after that is a right scalene triangle. The right scalene triangle can actually happen, is where we do have a right angle, but then all the sides are different. They have different measurement. So we're actually going to kind of use this a little bit later on to go ahead and to label different triangles. So this is where everything should actually be filled in. I don't have it filled in on mine. And again, this is where we're filling everything in. So all of this should be filled in with all of the different pictures themselves. So here are some examples about classifying triangles. So we want to go ahead and we want to classify this triangle. We have to flip our page over where it has a different, it says classifying triangles on it. And we're going to pick one thing from the top and one thing from the bottom. The top part is the sides. We're going to look at all the sides. Okay. And honestly, I forgot to put them in. This should actually look like this. So we have this triangle here. All the sides are congruent. Let's look at it. Oh, okay. All the sides are congruent. That means it's an equilateral triangle. Now, equilateral triangles is the only case where it's a special case. So an equilateral triangle is actually going to have 5 names. So it's kind of like my friend in high school. She had 5 names. Her name was Helen Margaret Kayla Kalani Stephen Chung. She was Hawaiian. She had an English middle name and a Hawaiian middle name, and she is now married, so she has like 5 names. This is the only triangle that's going to have 5 names, just like my friend. So if it's equilateral, that's where all the sides are congruent. It also is considered isosceles, because isosceles has 2 of the sides congruent. Well, an equilateral has all 3 of them, so 2 of them could be congruent. Yeah. So it's equilateral isosceles. With an equilateral triangle, it's also acute, where all the angles are all small. Okay. So we have equilateral, isosceles, acute. And then another one that we did not go over is equiangular, where all the angles are congruent. And then the last name is always triangle. So then again, so this one, if it's equilateral, it's isosceles, acute, equiangular triangle. So this is the only one that has 5 names, but this is that special occasion. I want to make sure I went ahead and went over that. Okay. Now let's look at number 2. Let's look at the sides part. Okay. These 2 sides are congruent. Where are all 2 sides congruent? That is isosceles. And then now we're going to pick something from the bottom side, where are the angles. So we want to go ahead and we want to look at the angles. So we have this angle here. Oh, that's a right. Okay. And then with isosceles triangles, the bottom 2 angles are always congruent. That's what these little tick marks here. They're just saying, hey, these 2 are congruent, but I do have a right angle, and the last name is triangle. Okay. Let's look at this one here. Do I have anything showing that any of the sides are congruent? No. So I still have to pick something from the sides information. So is it equilateral, all 3 sides congruent? No. Is it isosceles, where 2 sides are congruent? No. Is it scalene, where none of the sides are congruent? Yes. So this is considered scalene. And then let's look down at the angles page, the part. Is it acute, or all these sides or all the angles less than 90 degrees? Well, probably. Is it obtuse where one of the angles is bigger than 90? No. Is it right triangle where one of them is right? Yes. So this is considered a scaling right triangle. So it's scaling right triangle. So all these names are always going to have three. You pick a side, you pick an angle. Last name is always triangle. And then let's look at the last one. We have this one here. Let's pick from the sides. So is it equilateral? All three sides are congruent? No. Let's pick isosceles. Is these two sides congruent? No. Is it scaling where none of the sides are congruent? Yes. So this is considered scaling. And then let's go ahead and let's look at the angles part down on the bottom. Are the angles, are they smaller than, all of them smaller than 90 degrees? No. Is it obtuse where one of them is bigger than 90 degrees? Yeah, that's this one here. So it's going to be obtuse. So we picked one from the sides, one from the angles. Last name is triangle. Okay. All right, so we need to take these pages that we did our notes on, and we need to tape them into our workbook. So classifying triangles. Okay, that's the one that we just barely did. That paper, tape in on page 132. Okay. And then the triangle sum theorem paper, we're going to tape in on page 133. So both of these pages, so fold it hamburger style. One should go on 132. That's the classifying triangles. The other one, the triangle theorem, triangle sum theorem, goes on page 133. So go ahead right now, fold those, tape those in, so you can have them in your workbook because you're going to use them for your test pretty soon. Okay, so make sure those get in there. All right, last thing that you should have is the actual worksheet. And so what we want, the triangle sum theorem and classifying triangles worksheet. That's together. That is your worksheet. It does go into Canvas, and that's the rest of it for today. So hope you guys have a good day. And if you have any questions, just email me if you can, and we'll kind of go from there. Thanks. Bye.